went, I think. Okay.
Probably going through the pregnancy.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure it's not. I can't even imagine. All right, I'm just gonna get the sheets here. Very shy now.
My time and slept for an hour and I turned to this, would have been 5 something, present time to get up.
Okay. Richie, there is a 9 o'clock today, just so you know.
I don't.
Oh, you got it. Okay, good. All right. Okay. Morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Let's put this back here. Their sheets are on the table. Anybody would like the sheets? Okay. So, we read last week Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Gimel. We didn't get to the comments of the Mishnah Berurah, so let's just reread Gimel very quickly to just recall where we were, and then we will read what the Chafetz Chaim has to say about this. So we had the case in Ein Yodam Maseges Liknos Yain LeKiddush Ulahachin Sarches Ulechvod Laila Ulechvod Hayom Ulekiddush Hayom. If you're in a situation where there are limited funds, and the question comes whether I only can either purchase wine for Kiddush, I can purchase Tzarchei Suda, things for my meal, some basics for a meal for the nighttime, or the basics for a meal for the daytime, or I could buy wine for Kiddush in the morning, on Shabbos morning. So I have a choice. I have to pick one of these 4. So the Shulchan Aruch here says, Mutav, again, it's based on the Gemara, Mutav sheyikne yayin lekiddush halayla, mima sheyachin tzarchei haseuda, mima sheyikne yayin letzorech hayom. It is better to purchase wine for the evening Kiddush than it is to buy anything for the needs of the meals, or to buy wine and earmark it for the Shabbos morning Kiddush. So the Mishnah Berurah here says in Sif Katan Zayin, Mutav sheyikne v'chule. He says the Kiddush who, if you go back to flip back to that page, if you turn your page, go back. The Kiddush who mitzvahs asay doraisa. So why do we prefer Friday night Kiddush of all of the choices we had here? He says because that is a positive mitzvah that is biblical in nature. And the mitzvah of preparing food for the meal, right, and having a nice meal is fulfillment of the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbos, of delighting in the Shabbos, which is midivrei Kabbalah, which is received words from the Nevi'im.
Midirabbanan.
Yes, certainly it's not Deoraisa. There's a whole to do about the words divrei Kabbalah when it's used by the Rambam, which is, we're not reading the Rambam here, but yes, it is not biblical. Let's put it that way. Where does the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbos stem from? It's from the 58th chapter of Yeshayahu that says, "Then you shall call the Shabbos a delight." How do you delight in Shabbos? You prepare food that is delicious and make it a really enjoyable meal. That is one fulfillment of Oneg Shabbos, but it's not a Torah. It's from Yeshayahu. It's not a Torah mitzvah. That's from the Navi. But I learned in the Sunday morning shir in previous weeks that the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Zachor es Yom HaShabbos, that the recounting, the recalling of the sanctity of Shabbos, can be fulfilled technically by just saying words. So the wine, right? And the wine is from the words of the scribes, from the Midrabanan, to use wine in the fulfillment of this biblical commandment. Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Beis, as we mentioned before in the Mishnah Berurah and Sif Katan Beis. But even so, Kevin the Ikar Kiddush Min Torah, since the essential mitzvah really is of Kiddush it's rooted in the Torah. Gam yayin shelo kodem lako. We give the chashivus, the sort of give that mitzvah the utmost respect because it is a biblical mitzvah in nature. And yes, the wine is not biblical, but we prioritize dressing up the biblical mitzvah more than anything else. So we're going to use the money to buy the wine, which we use for the biblical mitzvah of Kiddush, which you could have done in a different way on a biblical level. But nonetheless, we want to do that mitzvah the best way since its roots are in the Torah. V'skimu acharonim dechol zeh dafke kasheyesh lo pas l'tzorach halayla u'l'tzorach hayom. But the acharonim all agree there's a stipulation here. This is only true specifically when there is bread that is available l'tzorach halayla u'l'tzorach hayom that you can make hamosi at night and during the day. Then with the limited funds that you have, am I going to purchase the rotisserie chicken or at Seasons, or am I going to buy a bottle of grape juice? Then you're going to buy the bottle of grape juice and you're going to use it on Friday night. And you'll have your challah and you'll call it a day. Again, we should not know of such things. We should be able to really enjoy our Shabbos meals, but that is what the sort of the less than ideal scenario would call for. Aval kishe'ein lo pas, when I don't have any bread, when he doesn't have any bread, mutav sheyikne lo pas v'yikadesh olav. It is better that he should purchase challah or some sort of bread and make kiddush over it. The hachayav lechol pas balayla, because there is an obligation at night to eat bread. V'chein lemachar b'yom haShabbos, and the next day as well there is an obligation to make a seuda. You can't have a seuda without lechem. So you can't get off the ground with a meal if you don't have bread. And since you can also make kiddush in a less than ideal scenario using the bread, then mutav that you should is better sheyikne apas. So when do we purchase the wine as a priority for Friday night? That's what I have challah. I have challah for Friday night and for Shabbos day. Then I'll go ahead and purchase the wine. But if you don't have any bread, you should be using the funds to buy bread.
It's interesting. It's almost like personal preference here. The rabbis have a personal preference for wine and grape juice. What about people who have, for them, that's not a party? I mean, the meal is a big thing. The chicken is a big thing, not the wine.
Right.
So you're degrading your simcha because whoever decided this prefers wine.
Well, it's not said that people necessarily preferred wine. What's happening here is that the rabbis are determining that if you're going to have to choose one, we would rather enhance the mitzvah min haTorah, the kiddush, even though the wine part is not min haTorah, but we want to dress that up. We want to make that part of Shabbos a geschmack experience.
Okay,
and it's not so as they are crying over the fact that you don't have enough, for the meal, but they're not. But they want to prioritize, the mitzvah min haTorah and giving that the kavod it deserves. So long as you have your challah, so you have a baseline seuda of bread. I hear.
It's supposed to be sameach and enjoy the day. And I can't have my chicken because I can't afford chicken and a grape juice. So I have to have grape juice, which I really don't like.
I mean, what do you say about Pesach? It's the rabbi's choice that it's 4 cups of wine. I mean,
in terms of why 4 cups of wine as opposed to four pieces of masa.
If you're arguing about what floats your boat, then you can say, right, okay, wine is not my thing, so it's not going to make me extra happy after being free on Pesach.
And so it's actually interesting because we're about to see also that
but that's not the right thing.
That the rabbis had a particular approach here that if there is wine available, you shouldn't ever use challah as your food to enhance the kiddush. Right? The idea is that there is a food, there is a drink that is always attached, that is always a part of the kiddush, and so we use wine. That's what we're supposed to use. What? You can have a little, but no, look at me. Just make sure you're playing in there, okay? Thank you. Simeon, go ahead.
The wine is simply an enhancement. Kiddush is an obligation, and it can be fulfilled with the primary obligation of lechem.
Correct. So when there is limited, when things are limited, that I can only choose challah or wine. So choose challah and use that as your basis for the kiddush. That is undoubtedly the case. Yes, that's why he says purchasing wine is only if you already have challah, because otherwise
Right.
the challah suffices and you are able to have a suda. Now, there's also a bit of a halachic piece to this. Take a look here. What if you have enough wine for the nighttime kiddush, but you don't have enough for the daytime kiddush, or the kavod hayom, meaning food for the daytime? Okay. Even though we know that kavod hayom, that the honor of the daytime meal, meaning that you have something to eat, not something substantive to eat, is more important than kiddush during the morning. Okay, we'll talk more about that in actually a few moments. Nikol Makom, nevertheless, turn the page now. You have two columns of Mishnah Berurah, so please be aware of that. Okay, so we're on the right hand column. After the dailo b'pas, perhaps it's possible that it is enough. It is enough with just bread, right? V'hamotar yiknelo yain lekiddush hayom, and the rest, right? The rest can be used to purchase kiddush for the daytime, right? So he says again, you have enough for the nighttime, but you don't have but you don't have enough to get. So here, the case is that you don't have enough to either get for both the kiddush for the daytime and the meal for the daytime. So now what do? Nighttime, I'm okay, I'm set. What about the daytime? I don't have enough wine. I can either choose wine, kiddush, and in the daytime, or kavod ayom, which is have a chicken, have a something, So even though we usually say kavod ayom is preferred, he says nevertheless, maybe as long as you just have a challah, the rest you should use to buy the wine. So that way you have a kiddush and you have a challah roll. So there was then why here? So Tommy, why here?
Okay, the kiddush on Shabbos.
Yeah.
Why is it okay?
Not preferable.
It's definitely not preferable. Now the Jewish world doesn't like that I say that though, because there's one source that everybody of course holds of, which is the Taz. The Taz says that you can use Sheikha Hamedina, drinks that are alcoholic drinks like this that are have chashivos, and you'll drink that to the amount that is normal for that. That's why it's a whole thing. You have people making kiddush on a little tiny shot glass, and that's already also a question. It's also a question. Yair, can you please make sure that he's okay? Please help him out. Okay, thank you. That this little shot glass, which has not enough of a revius, but he says that's okay because that's the normal amount a person would drink if they're having a significant amount. The way a cup of wine would have its amount. But it's questionable. What? Okay. Yeah, can you help please work this out and help him? Thank you. Okay. No, I need you to stay in there. Love you. Okay. Okay. So but it is very questionable. Kiddush, I'm happy to spend maybe some time one of these weeks. Actually, as it comes up, we're going to be really delving into Kiddush. When we get to the part where he talks about Kiddush, using wine for Kiddush, we'll take a little aside about using schnapps. I'm not here to, by the way, say that people who do it are not following halacha. The Taz is not a nobody, so we'll talk about that when we get there. Absolutely. Okay. So if you make Kiddush on schnapps, please don't change your minhag because of that. I'm serious when I say that. Like that there is a what to say about the fact there's the minhag of this. I tell you, I'm not a big schnapps fan in general, but I personally do try to make kiddush using grape juice or wine here in shul even before I eat something. Anyway,
Rob,
so yeah, Simeon.
Rob, is the Chafetz Chaim suggesting to prioritize the wine on Shabbos daytime over the challah?
No, he's saying over the chicken. My example.
Where
He
did
said,
he have
as long
chicken?
as you
I
have
heard
bread, he says, after a dilo bepas, as long as you have challah, then the rest of the money should be used to purchase kiddush hayom. So I have a challah for the daytime. I have a challah roll, two challah rolls. So now I should go out and buy one of those little grape juice things. If I can't buy anything else, rather get that than the rotisserie chicken.
Okay, but I didn't see the way where he had chicken in here. Did I miss it?
I'm putting the word chicken. Kavod hayom is referring to enhancing the meal, to having more than just challah, to fish and chicken. You should. So here he says, as long as I have pas, then buy kiddush wine. But he doesn't say go out and get your tzarchei seuda, the needs for the meal. That you'll put aside. Yes, Steve.
Don't you think he would have fulfilled the obligation if he would have prioritized? If you have a little money left over, then establish the Suda Friday night.
Well, no. So in this situation, this last scenario, the Friday night meal is taken care of, at least to the extent of wine and bread. Now I only have a little bit more money, so what should I do with it? So if I have enough, I should get a challah roll or two challah rolls, and a little thing of grape juice. And if I don't, if I have nothing left, okay, it is what it is. Better to do that than take the challah rolls off the shelf and grab the gefilte fish. You'll rather better to have the kiddush wine than the gefilte fish.
Okay.
So when he says motar, his note is that instead of having lechem mishnah, you just have one challah.
Oh, he says one.
One, and
the dilo
left
bepas.
over you buy the wine.
He's saying, interesting. Where? No, you have to be okay with it. Okay.
Whose opinion was that?
Yeah, where did that come from? Who do you say?
Hilchot Shabbat and the Prima Gadim.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's an interesting interpretation. After the Lilo Bepas, meaning like with one piece of bread, and the rest you have kiddush wine for the day. Interesting. Okay.
There's a note here.
Yeah.
Well, it's having some bread takes precedence over having wine for kiddush. The Acharonim discuss whether to have 2 loaves of bread with Right. The fulfillment of lechem mishnah also takes precedence over wine. Taz maintains that lechem mishnah is mandated by biblical law, and thus having lechem mishnah would take priority even over wine.
Meaning the idea of it comes from the Torah with the picking double.
However, Magen Avraham, and which is explained by Tosefes Shabbos and Prima Gadim, disagree.
Okay, there you go. So it depends on your reading. Okay. Very good. All right, let's take a look. Let's keep going here. So,
but they're still sick.
Yeah.
Main things we want to be Yotze with, right? We want to be Yotze with Kiddush, which you can do with Challah.
Correct. On Friday night.
We want to be Yotze with Shtei Lachem.
Correct.
With 2 loaves of bread.
Correct.
We want to be Yotze with Kiddush from Makom Seuda.
Which is why you need the bread. We're actually going to mention that soon. That's why having the bread, you can't have the wine without the bread.
Right. Have the bread without the wine.
Right. Exactly. And that's why he took it as a given. That of course, yes, purchase the wine for Friday night, but you have to have challah. Otherwise, you're having kiddush. Shalom kom seuda. There's nothing else happening afterwards.
The kiddush and the seuda.
Correct. That's an important principle. Okay, take a look at Sifkat on Ches. Yayin letzorach hayom, right? That it's better than having the wine Friday night is better than other things, and among them in the list is the wine for the daytime kiddush. Hayin letzorach kiddush hayom. What he means by yayin letzorach hayom he means letzorach kiddush hayom. Not that you're just drinking stam on Saturday. Talking about drinking the kiddush wine on Shabbos morning. Ba'atam, the kiddush alayla ikaru midaraisa. Kiddush at night it's at its root comes from a biblical commandment. The kiddush hayom hu rak midrabanan. The kiddush of the daytime is just the rabbinic mitzvah. And even though at night you could say the bracha for kiddush on challah, on bread, rifta is the Aramaic word for bread. And during the daytime, look, if you have nothing to make kiddush on, you don't make kiddush and you just eat a meal. By the way, if that ever happens to you, what was it? Because the mitzvah of kiddush on Friday night is a biblical mitzvah, so using the wine in that context is.
That was a lechem mitzvah. It's pretty obvious, right? Because in Oman. But what about where does it come from?
Zachar Shabbat Lekadsha. And Zachar is the Zechira. The Zechira, the mentioning, the remembering there is through words.
I get it saying it, but the idea that you must have wine. It seemed that
the wine.
Mishnah thing is you should do it if you have your choices there. Lechem Mishnah seems straightforward, Doraisa. And the other thing would seem that if the problem is with the alcohol.
Right. So here's the thing. I'm gonna split hairs here. That the idea. This is gonna sound funny. The idea of Lechem Mishnah is sourced in the Torah from the story of the man being picked twice, double portion, because it's a reminder of that for us when we make a motzi on Shabbos. They had no man on Shabbos, right? They had it double on Friday, so we remember this miracle on Shabbos. But the idea of eating a meal on Shabbos, I don't know. There's a biblical mitzvah.
You don't know what?
That's only midivrei sofrim. Right? That's not biblical. Meaning, as I was saying, the idea of a meal on Shabbos. Someone needs to point me to a pasuk. I don't think, but that source. So Richie is pointing to a Gemara in Masechah Shabbos, right? He was holding up something. He was holding up 3 fingers. What does it say 3 times in the pasuk? Remember?
Shalosh sudos. I don't know.
Right, where it comes from the pasuk where it says 3 times that it says lechem 3 times, something like that, right? There's a Hilchot 2, right? So what is it? I think it's 3 times, and so we learn about the idea of shalosh shudas. But I don't know. That's like a asmachta b'alma. I think I think that I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not asmachta b'alma. It's not. I don't know that we say that it's a right. It's an asmachta where we learn that you have 3 meals, and it comes from this. And I'm not saying it's eating. This is a funny word. It's like kind of there are things that are rooted a little bit in the Torah, ideas that we pull from, but I'm not sure that the having of the meal is the biblical mitzvah.
It's the Oneg Shabbos.
It's a fulfillment of Oneg Shabbos, which comes from Midivrei Sofrim. Right, exactly.
And since we normally have 2 meals a day, the 3rd meal is what sets Shabbos aside.
Yes.
So if you don't have the 3rd meal, you're treating Shabbos like any other day. And there is no Oneg Shabbos in 2 meals. It's the 3rd meal that creates the Oneg Shabbos, because you eat 2 meals every day.
Right.
So the only thing that
Richie is elevating shalosh shudas right now. Beautiful. I love that. No, that's a beautiful idea.
Yeah. No. A lot of when we get to shalosh shudas, you'll see.
Yeah.
That, a lot of persons say we're looking at any credit for Oneg Shabbos.
Right.
3 meals. You only do 2 meals. You only get credit.
Correct.
And it's important with that line of thinking when we get to shalosh shudas further down.
Yeah.
That you make mostly in the bench.
Yeah. Correct. It's a strong preference to have a meal at shalosh shudas. You can always rely on mazonos, but actually a big strong preference. You're absolutely right on having making it into a meal, having hamotzi and the whole to do. That's right.
Some people even say you should say kiddush, but that we've never done that.
We've never done that in shul, but there is a minhag about that. All right. Anyways, so you can have the kiddush yishar during the day. You can yishar bali kiddush. You can move on with life without kiddush. Mikol makom came into makom sheyesh yayin. Ein mikach narifta delaila adifa. Since you could if I use the wine now, I won't have it for kiddush during the day. And okay, so such is life. But I have bread, so shouldn't I just make the kiddush on bread and save the wine for tomorrow? And the answer is no. The answer is no, since there's a principle that when there is wine available, you are not allowed to make kiddush on bread. Not allowed. You should not make kiddush on bread. you did, it's still fine, but you should use wine. When there's a situation, I feel like I recall once in my life, I was thinking about this yesterday as I was preparing. I was like, I feel like I have a memory. One time my dad made Kiddush and it was over the challah. And I want to say that we somehow forgot to buy, we thought we had wine or grapes, and like turned out we didn't. And so we ended up making Kiddush on the challah. But that's not, I called it only one time. I think it stood out to me because it was odd. But the malcolm when there is wine, we use wine, and even if that comes at the expense of I won't have wine the next day for Kiddush, okay? Because Laila Adifa, the nighttime is preferred in terms of dressing up and enhancing the biblical mitzvah of Kiddush. Yes, Richie.
Sometimes there's actually there are parentheses on Shabbos. There's the Kiddush on Shabbos.
Correct. He says that Havdalah is also included in that mitzvah.
Yeah.
That's why it's a suffix whether it's a biblical mitzvah or not. The Rambam holds it is.
So two ends. So according to Rambam, Kiddush Friday night, Havdalah Motzei Shabbos are two ends of the same mitzvah.
Yes.
So there's nothing in the middle. The Zohar Yom Shabbos is the nighttime is the Zohar. The middle really isn't.
Right.
And then Havdalah is.
Correct. Yes, that's why we're going to see when we get to the laws of Havdalah, there's going to be sometimes a preference if I have limited funds. Maybe the Havdalah wine should come before, comes before. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get there.
Is there any requirement as to how much wine you're supposed to drink?
A revius. So that's exactly. Kaddish should be on that, and you need to just drink the majority of that. Okay, but which is not a lot, by the way. If you really measure out, and every Pesach I always do, because we're not such an alcohol family, and it takes a toll on your system. So I usually will take some cups before, and I will measure out. Okay, good. So if we fill this kind of cup up, you're good, and you should ideally try to drink the whole thing or at least half, whatever. Okay.
Can I inject a little shopping?
Yeah.
What's the first thing you want to do after you got out the table?
A planted vineyard. That's right.
That's terrible, Rob. You should put in for a raise. What is this?
It was the rabbi's whole sermon.
What did you say, Richie? What did he say?
The rabbi's whole sermon was
Yeah, I hear the rabbi's sermon. No, but I don't know, but Noah felt the need, besides Karbanos, to have Kiddush.
To have Kiddush.
That wasn't why he did it.
Well, they're like, who knows what?
It was to assuage his guilt. For not
guilt,
trying to
depress,
to save any of the bad people.
I'm always trying to give Noah,
the benefit of the doubt. He was a tzaddik in any generation. He was a tzaddik, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go back up on top. Top line of the Shulchan Aruch here. But what about the principle that Kvod Yom, the daytime honor, comes before the nighttime honor, meaning like I should have a good meal I should honor the meal of the daytime more than the nighttime meal. So you tell me I should buy the wine for the Kiddush at night and leave the daytime meal hanging. So he says, Hayu dafke b'shar tzarchei suda. About ein lo ella kos echad lekiddush. But that's when it comes to other parts of the meal. That's Simeon, my code word for gefilte fish, chicken, whatever. Right? Okay. But if I only have 1 cup for Kiddush, that's all I can afford. 1 cup of wine. Then nighttime, kvod laila kodam l'chvod yom. Nighttime is preferred over daytime. But when it comes to everything else, this may come as a surprise to everybody. Take a look now at Sif Katan Tes. Beshar Tzarchei Seuda. Kigon sheyesh lo ma'at minei megadim. You have some dainties, some sweets, some delicious food. So when I have a little bit of that, where should I put it? Nighttime, daytime. Tov yoser sheyanichem litzorech sudas hayom. Actually, more preferred to make the daytime meal a more if you can make both, wonderful, great. That if you have to choose, the gefilte fish goes at night or during the day. And I don't really have much else. Then you should save your gefilte fish for the day, because the daytime meal, the principle in the brayta is that is kvod yom kodem l'chvod laila, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. But Sefer Yam Shel Shlomo, in the book in the work called Yam Shel Shlomo, Kore Tigar al She'en Nizhar Bazeh. He takes people to task. He really is stark about this, that the people are not careful about this. People are not careful about this at all. V'adarabba. And on the contrary, most people are adding more and more food to the Friday night meal. On the Shabbos day, I have a cookie. I have a whatever in shul. It's fine. I'll just I'll have a cracker and a scoop of tuna, and that's it. No, look, if that's all you have, God bless you. But if you are taking your Friday night meal and you're making it into a king's feast, and the daytime meal is nothing, actually you should do the opposite. The daytime meal, the Brisa says, should get more kavod than the nighttime meal. You should, of course, you give kavod to both, but if you have to choose kavod ayom before kavod halayla, he says, look at Sif Katan Yud, kodem l'chvod layla, kodem l'chvod yom, hainu bein l'tzarch esuda de yom, uvein kiddush she'oskim bayom. Uchmo shekasa b'sif. Again, that nighttime kiddush, when there's only a little bit of wine, comes before the daytime, and that means even the daytime kiddush and the sarchei hasuda for the daytime. So if I don't have gefilte fish, I don't have chicken, as a result of me buying the wine for Friday night, so be it. The wine Friday night comes first. Okay, you're gonna be okay. All right, why don't you just take a break and sit? Okay. Okay, go, Peter. Okay, thank you. Oh, he's just sitting there. Okay, fine. Okay. Very good. Where are we here? Okay, so that was Sif Gimel, and again, that's my also I think proves the point here of the importance of the daytime meal. Now, it shouldn't just be a knockoff version of what happened the night before. Really, it should have its own chashivus. Yeah. Yes.
So when people hear big kiddush in shul, they figure go to shul. So they eat the kiddush and then they have to make the meal at home.
Right.
Not in our house.
Not in your house. Okay. But a lot of people do that.
Right.
Not just here, but everywhere.
That's correct. Yeah.
They hear the big kiddush, so good, I don't have to prepare a meal. So, so people come to kiddush, but again, this goes back to Rabbi Rubenstein.
Yeah.
That people come in, they have a piece of cake, they'll maybe make a mizona, but they'll forget to make a baruch hachrona. And they certainly won't wash. They won't have wine. They won't have challah, but they'll eat at the kiddush. They're full, and then there's no.
They don't have it right.
No daytime food.
Yeah, that definitely lends itself to the idea that maybe there should be challah rolls around that people then near to wash and. Right. At least if you have the rabbi makes the communal kiddush. Okay, so you go to the kiddush, yeah, because then at least if there are challah rolls, then you can make a meal out of it.
There was a time we used to put the bracha corner on the tables at the kiddush. Just trying to remind people, if you can have some, cake with cookies.
Right.
We make a bracha corner. I don't know if that qualifies as a suda or not.
Right.
But,
look, certainly mimakom suda. That's why the kiddush can count. If you have mizonos, so you have some cake, cookies, crackers, that you didn't fulfill your mitzvah of having a suda with she'alechem, exactly, with the lechem mishnah piece.
So then
okay.
When you make kiddush and watch, let's say, and you eat Arlington chicken at the in shul, right, and the deli roll. So why
I get.
No, you say wash and make.
Go home.
So halachically, I guess that might do it halachically.
By keeping your meal alive as
a substitute for the cover of a meal, of a Shabbos meal, the daytime meal.
Right.
It's a poor substitute.
I don't know if it's still the case, but for a long time we wouldn't allow challah rolls at kiddush because people weren't washing.
Right.
They were just eating the challah.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a rule today is that we don't because of that. It's all a give and take, that's Richie's point. All right, let's take a look here at Sif Valid now. Okay, this is a very tough halacha, so I apologize if this comes as a surprise. That's why we're learning, and we're always growing. Sif Valid says the following in the Shulchan Aruch: "Asur litom klum kodem sheyikadesh afilu mayim." So Friday night, once it is now Shabbos, you're not allowed to taste anything. You can't try the food. Oh, is this good or not? I don't solid. No. And you can't taste anything before making kiddush, even to take water. That's pretty harsh in the sense of, like, I can't have water until I make kiddush. And even if you start now, actually, let's pause right there. Let's read the Mishnah Berurah on Yud Aleph Yud Beis Yud Gimel, because the next part is going to get into a whole sugya that's in Arvei Psachim about Toris Mapo Makadesh. So I'm literally stopping in the middle of a sentence to go to the Mishnah Berurah now. Yud Aleph Asur Litom V'zehu Rak Isur D'Rabbanan. This whole thing is only an Isur D'Rabbanan of not tasting anything. V'atan, what's the reason behind this rabbinic rule? Came in the chiyuv, excuse me. Shel kiddush chal alav miyad b'knisas Shabbos. The obligation of kiddush is hanging over your head the moment Shabbos starts, which is sunset, or if I take on Shabbos earlier. But if lo kibel alav Shabbos behedjav, if I didn't accept Shabbos explicitly, right? Because kevan shena says fake chashecha, meaning it's sunset now. It's fake doubt whether it's nighttime or not. Chal alav Shabbos. Therefore, Shabbos is now upon you, and therefore the mitzvah of kiddush is upon you. In kira alav Shabbos afilu adayin yom gadolim dina hache. And if I take on Shabbos early while it's still daylight out, the halacha is also such that I'm not allowed to take a sip of water. V'imrot lekabel Shabbos mi'od yom ulekadesh. Oh, sorry. Let's pause right there. So what does this mean? This means that just like any other time, I have a mitzvah hanging over my head. Let's use Hanukkah, next holiday coming up, as an example. If I have not fulfilled my mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah candles, and it was already the Zman of lighting Hanukkah candles, I'm not supposed to eat until I fulfill the mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah candles. Because when there's a mitzvah upon your head, the rabbis, and by the way, even Marav is an example of this, generally speaking. Was it? In your shir?
Yeah.
About Marav? Or Hanukkah candles? About Hanukkah candles, right? And
if you forgot and you started to eat, you're supposed to stop and then go.
Correct. And even by tefillah, right? Or by Kriya Shema, the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, you're really not supposed to start eating a meal until you fulfill the mitzvah of Kriya Shema first. Because lest you eat and then forget, you fall asleep and you never do the mitzvah of Shema. And so when there's a mitzvah upon you, generally speaking, you're not supposed to eat. So the irony here is that you're not allowed to eat anything until you make kiddush, which is of course a consumption of another, substance, food here, liquid, which is funny because the other things are actions like lighting candles, saying Shema, davening Amariv. I can think of maybe a few other examples. Right, Kriyas HaMegillah is another example. That's why it's Tanis Esther. Right, goes into Purim. You're not supposed to ideally eat until after you hear Megillah, because Megillah is the mitzvah that's Chal, right? It's upon a person. Same thing here. That's why we don't eat or drink anything until we do the mitzvah of Kiddush. The funny part is that you're going to eat a meal. You might have thought there would be an exception here because the nature of a human being is that you're going to eat a meal. So yeah, that it's Shabbos, right? You're going to eat a meal at night. Even the times in Talmudic times, they would usually eat a meal. Some pas shachris. The Gemara talks about pas shachris. They had a little bit of something, a little bread in the morning. You had a meal in the middle of the day and a meal at the end of the day. This is, by the way, where the whole idea of waiting 6 hours comes from. Okay, it comes from the fact that the Gemara talks about they had 2 meals a day, one in the middle of the day, and one. Right, there were 2 meals a day, and the assumption was that the Rambam made they ate in the middle of the day and the end of the day. Halachically, how much time is between the middle of the day and the end of the day? Keshe shos. Right? Exactly. By the way, I always say the whole 6 hours. Right?
The winter is easier.
Winter is easier than the summer. Right? It should be like Shei Shos Manios. The only problem I always have with that is that the nighttime Shos Manios are longer. It always balances out. The 12 hours of nighttime in the winter are the Shos Manios of the nighttime in the winter is longer to match the shorter Shos Manios of the daytime. So I always don't know what to do when my meal, my 6 hours, corresponds to the daytime and the night. Anyways, these are fun, crazy figures I have in my head. Okay, so, anyways, he says here a very important thing. I've mentioned this to you. I told you my Rebbe. I never saw him do it, but he said that he does it with his family. David's mincha, some early mincha in Teaneck, which they probably have more than a few of on a Friday afternoon. And then look at this. If you want to accept Shabbos early, right, while it's still daylight, ulekadesh velechol ulehispal arvis achar kach balayla. Rashai, it is permissible to go ahead, take on Shabbos early, make kiddush, eat, and then afterwards go to shul, daven Maariv. Right? Mincha, you can't do at that point, of course, that's done. But you can. Kabbalah Shabbos, you can, it's Pirkei Tehillim,
before you eat.
Not necessarily. You can look. I understand why you might think we should do that because I'm welcoming in the Shabbos.
Isn't he saying no? Isn't he saying here that you're just accepting Shabbat early?
Yep.
And then you're waiting for it to get dark to eat and daven.
No, he's saying here maybe you can accept Shabbos Nibojam ulekadesh and make kiddush bilechol, and then he clearly says he's following arvis achar kach balayla, and then davening Maariv when it's dark at night. So he's saying you can make daven mincha earlier. That's obvious because otherwise there's no chance for mincha, right? Kabbalah Shabbos, I don't know where it falls out here. I don't think I think again you could probably get away with not doing Kabbalah Shabbos also because it's not in the spirit. I hear that, Richie. It's not in the spirit, but at the core, Kabbalah Shabbos are Pirkei Tehillim, right? And a beautiful poem of Lachadodi. Otherwise, it's just Tehillim, and you can say Tehillim here, Tehillim there.
You're going to say mincha early.
Yeah.
Right. So you say mincha, you do Kabbalah Shabbos
up until a point, though, right? Until Mizmor Shir, because then you're taking on Shabbos. If you want to,
you're taking on Shabbos because you're going home, you're making kiddush.
If you want to drive home, though, you got to do. We can't say Mizmor Shir.
You can't drive. No, but you're going home, making kiddush, you're having your Shabbos.
Yeah.
And you're going back to school for months.
Yeah, for sure you do. But so I think here, leaving aside Kabbalah Shabbos, this is an interesting question. He says it's permissible to do this where you're eating and drinking before davening Maariv. With tonight, on the condition. No, that just means that you're accepting Shabbos. You're accepting Shabbos. How do I accept Shabbos? By the way you could, this would be very clever. So the woman, the woman in the household, the wife should light candles. Right? That is a mitzvah important to do. And then the husband should pick up a kos in this scenario. He hasn't even accepted Shabbos yet. And he should say, Vayer Vayivoka Yom HaShiv Vayachulu. And in his saying of Vayachulu, he's probably accepted Shabbos. And then he proceeds with Borei Pri Gafen and the bracha for Kiddush. And that is how he accepts Shabbos. And it's Mibol Jom. It just means that he accepted it while it was still daylight. Now, with tonight, on condition it should just be at least 30 minutes before the time for Maariv. 30 minutes before Shkia.
That's a general.
That's a general rule. Exactly. It's a general rule. You're not allowed to eat 30 minutes prior to the time of Maariv.
Or some other mitzvah that uses.
Or any other mitzvah. Exactly. So, but here's the irony. I'm not in violation of that rule. And so I don't have to daven Maariv at this point yet. But I've accepted Shabbos. So I'm in this sort of twilight zone of like, where am I exactly? So at that point, actually, you can go ahead and make Kiddush. And you can eat your meal without any issue. And then go to shul and daven Maariv afterwards. And so this is the solution for people who sometimes in the summer have smaller meals on Friday because I don't want to eat so much at late. The solution to it is this.
Or you need to put your kids to sleep.
Exactly. Find your local early minyan on Friday afternoon. You daven it. We actually have them, by the way. We have seasons, right? And then you need to find what you don't have in the summer here is a Zman Maariv minyan, right? Which any bigger community like a Teaneck place is going to have. You're going to have multiple minyanim, and one of them is going to be at Shkia, right? When it's after Shkia. And I know that I don't need to show up for Mincha. I showed up for Mincha earlier, so I could just really show up literally at Shkia. And I'm walking. Obviously, you can't drive at this point. And I should eat my meal. Right? I should take a Shabbos and write a plag HaMincha. The wife lights candles. I make Kiddush. We all sit around and we have a meal as a family. We enjoy a big, juicy, delicious meal. Can't take too long, though. Wrap it up. Because an hour and a quarter later, it's Shkia. And everyone benches and everyone heads to shul for Maariv. That is a very clever way to deal with the summertime where people don't want to have a big meal late, but and also, this way you still have kavod, for the meal. Yeah.
Probably have
people
making these large barbecues on Friday afternoon by the pool.
Still, I never heard of that.
No.
Rabbi spoke about that.
Morgan Rubenstein.
No,
Morgenstern.
Rabbi Morgenstern.
Morgenstern.
And it was
Took a
kind of
bash on it.
controversial because a lot of his friends were doing it.
Uh-huh.
And it was very brave of him.
Oh, wow. Okay, this was before my time then.
Yeah, so you have a barbecue at 6 p.m. on a long Shabbos, a long Friday afternoon. Nobody's in the mood to make a Shabbos meal after that.
Did he speak about Horace Mapo and Makadish? That's the next part of our sugya here.
Okay, but anyway,
yeah.
But the thing is that on a long Friday afternoon, people with little kids, they do like to feed the kids early.
Yes.
And sometimes they'll feed the kids early. They don't have a Shabbos meal. They don't hear Kiddush. They don't.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Now I just came back to me. Somebody did ask me a shiloh. I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna intimate who. I had gotten a shiloh back in the summer from a family that they were having their grandkids over or something like that with the kid, and they were asking me this question: can they, their kids want to be able to have their kids eat the Shabbos meal? Can they eat it before Shabbos? And then that's the Shabbos meal, and then later they'll just do Kiddush and Hamotzi. I said I'm not comfortable with that. And I said I'm sorry. I said the kids can eat. By the way, look, they need to eat, and then they can't stay up late. So you give them the food, but everybody, the adults should all eat, Kiddush or Hamotzi, and then be a meal, later.
And then, of course, there's the literally like Plag Mincha in summer is usually around quarter after 6 or something. So you have a 6 o'clock Mincha, and then you do Kabbalah Shabbos at like 6:20.
Yeah.
So now
right where
you're ignoring northern climes with midnight suns and stuff. Even in Seattle, when you go into
for sure.
Paris and London.
Are you really going to start? They're going to make Shabbos.
Yeah, and that's
they're going to wait to eat at midnight.
No. There, I actually, you should ask. By the way, the person who speaks about this is Rabbi Yeamans. Okay, when you should ask when he comes. That's right. He was in Edmonton for a couple of years, where the sun doesn't set till something like 11 something at night in the summer. And so what? But Plag HaMincha is an hour and a quarter halachic time, which is actually when you expand it out to the amount of daytime in a place like Edmonton, it's not an hour and a quarter. That's probably like double or maybe even more than double that in actual time. They would just daven right before Plag, daven after Plag. People would go home and eat, which is still pretty late, by the way. But there's no better solution there.
It's not even.
They're not waiting till sunset. They're using their blackout shifts. They're not waiting.
Is our defining time Mincha before and
right.
Kabbalah Shabbat and Marav after.
Right.
We always time our Mincha right before Shkia.
Right.
But you could do the same thing with Plag HaMincha. Straddling.
Yeah, you could straddle Mincha before Plag HaMincha, and then davening the Kabbalah Shabbos tomorrow right afterwards.
Shabbos Shabbat, obviously it doesn't mean Shabbos because we don't have it on the But
we don't have it.
Saying B'Sham rule, you have to say for Shabbos, and in my review, you don't have Kabbalah Shabbat. All of that is missing except for Mizmor Shir.
When it's on Yom Tov. That's why we do say Mizmor Shir, because that's the acceptance of Shabbos.
But that's not Kabbalah.
But and this goes to your point. This goes to the question before. That really is the Kabbalah Shabbos, though. That is the accepting of the delivery of Kabbalah. But that is the acceptance of Shabbos. It's like Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbos. Today now is Shabbos, and this is the Mizmor for Shabbos.
We have a Friday with the Yom Tov, right?
Right.
That's what we say. We say those two.
We say those two because it's Shabbos. Now.
We do that right after Mincha.
Correct.
We like attach it to Mincha.
That's right. Usually it's the same chazan. Exactly. Yeah.
That's right after Mincha. We knocked out 145.
So we did try
that's true.
We tried that experiment of the
Zman.
Plag Mincha, prior to Plag Mincha Mincha.
Right.
And then after Plag Mincha Kabbalah Shabbos.
Right.
We tried
but it didn't work because sometimes
we get meetings together.
Yeah.
But
so it became 7 was the.
It's going to be popular among people who want to get home before 7 o'clock on Friday night in the summer.
Right.
Instead of getting home at 8:30.
Right.
So
yeah, these are the big questions that shuls are always.
But this is you could daven early in the day, right?
Yeah, and then when Plag hits, you accept Shabbos, eat, and then go to shul afterwards for Makaf. You could do that.
Well, are they saying you have to wait or you just you daven mincha and you be makabel Shabbos early in the day, and then you wait for Maariv?
But you can only be makabel Shabbos from Plag HaMincha on.
Isn't there an Erev Shabbos?
That's the earliest time that you can accept Shabbos, and that's where you would have the meal at that time, and Simeon wants to get in here. I can see Simeon's got a problem with this. Go ahead.
Yes, Rav, I really don't understand. We learned earlier that the Midoraisa is based on the use of the word Torah using oneg. How do you eat and then go to shul to accept Shabbos when your oneg occurred actually in Chol? How are you fulfilling the Midoraisic notion?
No. So it's not Chol. Let me just correct you that. It's not Chol. What I'm doing is, once it's Plag HaMincha, we've learned that you can accept Shabbos as early as Plag HaMincha. So the assumption is here that I daven 1:45 at the early minyan in seasons, or whatever the equivalent is down there in Florida. And then I prepare the whole afternoon. We're preparing Shabbos. We set the table. It's beautiful. I'm making this up now. 6 p.m. is Plag HaMincha. And let's say 7:15 is sunset. So at 6 p.m., Diane Fensterheim goes and she lights candles, makes the bracha, and says good Shabbos to her husband, and her husband says good Shabbos to you. And he picks up, and the table was all set. It's now Shabbos in the home, and now Simeon, you pick up the Kiddush cup, and you make the Kiddush. It is Shabbos through and through for you. That is the rule. You can accept Shabbos. Tosefes Shabbos, I can bring in Shabbos a little bit early. And now it is Shabbos for you, for your whole family. And now this meal is occurring on Shabbos that I started at Plag HaMincha. And I say, well, but I should daven first. The answer is you don't have to daven until 30 minutes. You don't have to stop eating until 30 minutes before you have to daven. You don't have to daven Maariv until Shkia. So 30 minutes before Shkia.
If you don't daven Kabbalah Shabbos, whether it's Plag or later than Plag, you haven't accepted Shabbos yet. So the idea of the oneg doesn't kick in.
Okay. So it's like in a Jenga game, and I'm gonna try to do this carefully. I'm gonna take one of the pieces out, and it may cause the whole thing to tumble over. But here's the piece that I already am trying to put a piece in to stabilize this tower. You can accept Shabbos once it is Plag HaMincha. If in my mind I am ready to accept Shabbos, and I say the words out loud, it is Shabbos now. I have now transformed Chol into Kodesh. It is now Shabbos without davening, without saying Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos. Because the other Simeon, even first of all, Kabbalah Shabbos with all the song, the singing and that came along, with the Mekubalim in Sfat, 17th century. Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos came along later. You won't find anything in the Gemara about Kabbalah Shabbos with Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos. That became a later tradition that's already mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch. The Gemara, only ways you could accept Shabbos was Baruch Hu. They always talk about Baruch Hu and Maariv on Friday night. And even sometimes when we talk about it here in the Shulchan Aruch, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu. But if you didn't daven yet, you can also accept Shabbos by simply saying it's Shabbos, as long as you have the kavanah for it, and it's already past Plag HaMincha, then it is an acceptance of Shabbos. And so therefore, with that understanding, davening is not the only way to trigger Shabbos. It is a way to trigger Shabbos. It is not the only way. Does that make sense?
I tell you, it rationalizes it, whether it makes sense or not.
All right, you'll sleep on that one, okay? All right, it'll start to make sense. Yeah, Tommy.
If you have to stop eating half an hour before Shkia,
yes,
then the Friday night meal is a rushed event. You can't really sit and enjoy it.
It will be depending on where you are. I mean, like if it's the summer, and depends obviously where you are in relation to the equator. It may be, it may be an hour meal. Yes, it's possible. But here's the thing: if the choices are, I'm going to have a tiny meal later. I'm going to make kiddush and motzi and be yotze with a slice of gefilte fish, but I can't handle more than that. So maybe it's better to actually have a meal earlier. That's going to only be an hour long before I have to go back to shul, and it'll feature a little bit more. But and maybe I'll save dessert for we'll do the fruit and the cake when I come back from Marib. But that way, at least you had the core of the seuda, and it was at a time when people are willing to eat more. Because the reality is that many of us are uncomfortable with eating, in the summertime. I know we do it. I can't tell you how many times I go to bed and it's like I don't feel so good, and it's 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Boys out there, could you please take that game off the hallway from the hallway?
On the other hand, if I set the Shabbos, why do I have to wait stop eating half an hour before Shkia? I'm already in Shabbos. Yeah, but I'm, I
but if once I started, so here's the beauty of it. If I started, I think here is different work from Hanukkah, if I'm not mistaken. By Hanukkah candles, if you started a meal, you have to stop and you have to light candles. I think by Mariv, if you started a meal when it was perfectly good, perfectly halachically fine, I think if you start when you're not halachically supposed to, then you have to stop. But if you started a meal when it's halachically acceptable, you may continue to eat until late. And then as long as you figure out the Marab minion situation, you could grab 10 guys in the neighborhood and say, we'll all meet together 9 o'clock at your house. And then that's fine, actually. That would be completely acceptable. Just a matter of practically getting that together. But yeah, you don't have to stop your meal at Shkia. You could keep going and enjoy until such time as you're done, and then daven Marab afterwards.
Just to be clear.
Yes, Richie.
There is no second Shabbos before Plag HaMincha.
Plag HaMincha is the absolute earliest time. Correct.
So when he says Mivo Yom,
Mivo Yom is from Plag HaMincha and onwards. That's right. Yes. All right. Now, Yud Beis, Kodem Shi Kadesh, before you make Kiddush, Vafilu Ein Lo Ela Kos Echem. And even if you only have 1 cup, right? 1 cup, Yikadesh Alav, Vivarech Birchas Hamazon, below Kos. Hainu Afil Laman Despirle de Birchas Hamazon Tuna Kos. Le'el V'simen Kupei Beis Stif Aleph. But if you only have 1 cup of wine available, 1 cup of wine is available, you should make Kiddush with it, and rather than then and you'll have no Kos for Birchas Hamazon according to this matters according to the opinion that whenever you bench, you should use a cup of wine with a zimun. So even according to that opinion, if you only have 1 cup of wine, you'll use it to make kiddush instead of using it for benching. Okay, the lo yochal kodem shikadosh, and rather don't eat before making kiddush. Right. So you might have thought, well, maybe I should save the wine for later, so I won't make kiddush. And therefore. I can eat some other things right now. No. Make the kiddush. Yud Gimel.
But you have to have challah in order to do Birkat Hamazon.
Yeah. 100. Yeah. You have to have a meal here. Yeah. No. The question is the problem is not with the rest of the food. For whatever reason, we forgot to go out and buy more grape juice or wine. There's only enough for 1 cup. Mistake was made. Right. So now what do? I should use that wine on the kiddush and not use it for benching. And even though it's according to some, there's an obligation to use it at benching. In that scenario, even that opinion would agree. Use it for the kiddush, and make sure you don't eat until you make that kiddush. And Yud Gimel says, "Afilu mayim." You're not even allowed to take a sip of water. We'll get into some halacha questions here about this. Now, but what am I allowed to do? V'shari lirchotz piv b'mayim. But I can wash out my mouth with water. You don't have to be so machmir. It's okay, because you can rinse your mouth out, right? Right here, whatever reason, right? Kevan the Eino Michaven Lahanas Tima. You're not exactly having intention for getting benefit or pleasure from the taste of the water in which you're rinsing out your mouth. Now, a more relevant, I think, question than the rinsing piece is: what if a person needs to take a pill?
Yeah.
And let's say the wife is home. This is more often the case. the wife is home and she's waiting for her husband to return home, and she takes a certain pill. I don't know, every evening, and it needs to be at a certain time or a certain number of times a day, whatever it is. He's taken at a certain time, and the husband is not home. He went to shul and coming home later. Can't take the medication, and with a little bit of water. So the poskim say here on this one, absolutely, she could do that. I'm looking which one of the notes was the one with the medicine question. Just make sure I get it. 25.
The problem is that some medications require you to have it in food.
Right. That's an interesting question. They didn't discuss it here, right? But then here's they talk about. They're talking so mutar lidla afalo kish kevin al lekicha trufa zo trufa zo lam im ein efsharus lechol trufa zo ela im sukar v'chadome dato sham. Oh, he actually talks about here dato sham she'asur lasos kevelo kish. What if you take it with some a little bit of sugar, maybe some more food, whatever? So then you should wait till Kiddush. But there's a solution to this, okay? I never thought about this all these years. My wife's at home sometimes. I'm walking home. I said it to her last night when I was preparing, actually. I said, there's an easy solution. If she needs to take a pill and needs to be on with food, she should just go ahead and make Kiddush. Woman is allowed to make Kiddush. She should go ahead and make Kiddush, take a cup of grape juice, make the Kiddush, take the medication. At that point, you can, if she needs to even, if it's really important to take it with food, it was timely, it was also a timely matter, so she should go ahead and make hamotzi. She can wait till the rest of the food to come out, make hamotzi, a little bread, and then take whatever little bit of food you need with the pill. And then when the husband comes home, he'll make Kiddush, he'll make hamotzi. Make sure you buy extra rolls in this situation, right? And then they'll eat the meal together. That is a solution if there was a need to rush, or if there's So that's always a solution that is on the table. One of them mentioned it here, that she could always just go ahead and make Kiddush, and therefore then she wouldn't need to wait for her husband to come home for her then to make Kiddush together. Better. It's nice to do it to sort of the family. I'm not saying but if you ever need, that is a solution to this question. Okay, let's pause here. Okay, we're gonna do a hafsaka here because the next piece is going to get into a very deep halachic topic, a fun one though, of pores mapa umekadesh, of spreading the cloth over the table and making kiddush. Like what happens on a meal starting on Friday?
It's not the table.
It's the challah.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's the challah. It's the challah. But when you learn the Gemara in Pesachim, you think they cover Torah's mappa, right? How about the table umekadesh, and you make the kiddush. But it's really the challah at the table, or whatever bread products are at the table. This is an interesting question. If you have a meal that goes from Friday afternoon, and it's a long meal that goes into Shabbos. An example of this might happen for some people this year is Purim. Purim Suda is on Friday this year. So what do you do? So the Ramah says have the Purim Suda in the morning. Not everyone does this because it's kind of complicated. So you'll start with lunch, or late lunch kind of thing, which is actually a perfectly halachically acceptable time to start a Suda. Maybe a Suda's mitzvah is a little questionable, but let's say they even started it at the middle of the day. And you know how some Purim Sudas go. I've never been to a Purim Suda like this, but some go on and on and on and on. And now suddenly look outside, the sun has gone behind the horizon, and we're in the middle of having a great time in Purim Suda. They daven mincha, as I mentioned beforehand. They daven mincha, and now what do I do? I'm in the middle of a meal. It's time. It's now Shabbos. How do I handle it? But I don't really have, But I'm gonna stop and make a new meal. Come on, this is your barbecue scenario, right? I'm really gonna make a new meal, right? You just had 3 hamburgers and 2 hot dogs, and now you're gonna tell me you're gonna stop, you're gonna bench, and you're gonna make a new meal? No, come on, you're not serious. So how do you take a meal from the weekdays? And Simeon's not gonna like this, and you're going to magically make it into a Shabbos meal. Okay, Simeon, did you catch that?
Just the last part, because you seem to differ from what you said. If you originally decide, irrespective of the davening, that you decide to accept Shabbos just by thinking it or by articulating it, then it's Shabbos.
Right, but let's say I started this meal before you could even take Shabbos in. I had no kavanah. It's one of these barbecues that everyone was talking about. Apparently, used to happen in the neighborhood. So the barbecue, and it's going on, and suddenly someone goes, "Hey, did you see the sun went away?" And it's Shabbos. How do you take a meal that was that was really a weekday meal, and now I could take it and turn it into a Shabbos meal? Halachically, making it into a Shabbos meal, it is something that may come up again this year on Purim. I believe actually last time they had a situation like that. Ryan Morgenstern did Paras Papa Makadesh for Purim, for his Purim school when it was on Friday. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting question. You cover the challah and you make kiddush, and now you've transformed. But there's a big question: Do I make hamotzi again? I was already eating bread. I was already in the midst of a hamotzi meal. Do I even make bar piagafen if I was already drinking wine at this Suda? Do I make bar piagafen, or do I just say, do I start kiddush? I can say vayachulu. I skip bar piagafen and go straight to the bracha for kiddush. These are the questions I'm going to deal with, and this is going to be, of all the sugyas we've learned about Shabbos, and we learned some pretty crazy ones. This may be one of the craziest sugyas in terms of just like, this is so not a reality that we think about at all. It will feel very strange to us to learn Paras Papa Makadesh. Yes, Richie, last point.